Title: The Laughing Mirror. In the quaint town of Marshfield, an old, ornate mirror stood against the wall of the town's antique shop. It was an unusual piece, framed in black and silver with intricate engravings of interweaving vines and thrones, always seeming to attract a glance, but never a buyer. One rainy afternoon, a young woman named Elsie wandered into the shop, her eyes immediately caught by the reflective allure of the mirror. The shopkeeper, a wizened old man with a wary gaze, watched as she approached it. "That's a special piece. Been here longer than I have," he declared, voice trembling slightly. "It's called the Laughing Mirror. They say it's cursed." Elsie, amused rather than deterred, chuckled. "Cursed? How so?" "They say at midnight you can hear it laugh, and anyone who hears it." The shopkeeper paused, swallowing hard. "They disappear within 3 days, replaced in the mirror by their own reflection, forever trapped." Laughing off the legend, Elsie bought the mirror. The idea of a cursed object seemed like a quirky conversation starter. She placed it in her bedroom, unknowingly counting down the hours to midnight. As the clock's hands aligned at 12, a faint, eerie laughter echoed through her room, chilling the air and freezing Elsie in place. The laughter grew, a sinister cackle that seemed to come from within the glass itself. Heart pounding, Elsie approached the mirror and peered into her reflection. Her image smiled back, but with a mocking, unsettling grin that wasn't hers. Frightened, she attempted to look away, but her reflection did not mimic her movements. Instead, it continued to stare, laughing eerily as Elsie backed away. Terrified, she covered the mirror with a cloth and tried to sleep, the haunting laughter still piercing through the fabric. The next day, Elsie felt uneasy. The laughter seemed to echo in her thoughts, distorting the edges of her reality. People around her appeared distorted, their faces occasionally flickering like bad television signals. Whispering to herself that it was just stress, she tried to ignore the chilling phenomena. On the second night, the cloth fell from the mirror. The laughter resumed, louder and more demanding. Elsie's reflection now stepped out of the mirror frame, standing in her room, but still connected to the mirror by a smoky silver tether. It spoke with a voice that was hers, yet filled with malice. "You invited me out," it said, its voice a horrifying harmony of giggles and whispers. "Now I'll stay, and you'll go." In a panic, Elsie tried to flee her house, but every reflection, windows, water, even her phone screen, showed the malicious double, not her own true image. With each reflection, her surrounding world seemed to crumble further, reality bending unimaginably. On the third day, Elsie's friends began searching for her, only to find the house silent. Inside, they found the mirror standing prominently in the bedroom. Elsie's desperate face permanently etched into the glass, her expression twisted in an eternal scream. The laughter could still be heard, softly echoing around the room, as if delighted by its freedom. As the old shopkeeper learned of what transpired, he could only sigh, a mix of guilt and resignation clouding his features. "I warned her," he muttered. "The mirror never lies, but it never tells the whole truth either." The mirror was returned to the shop soon after, its surface now strangely silent, waiting for its next listener, its next victim to laugh into the abyss. Title: Whispers of the Wolfwood. The legend of Wolfwood was as old as the village itself, nestled on the edge of a vast, shadowy forest. The elders warned of the unending darkness within, where sunlight barely touched the soil and the trees loomed like sentinels. They spoke of wolves with unnatural glowing eyes, guardians of an ancient secret. Eleanor, a young and curious high school teacher, newly arrived in the village, found these tales thrilling, yet absurd. One crisp autumn evening, driven by a mix of skepticism and intrigue, she decided to explore Wolfwood. As she crossed the threshold between the village and the forest, a chill slithered down her spine. The trees, gnarled and towering, whispered among themselves, leaves rustling with secrets. The deeper Eleanor ventured, the more she felt the intense foreboding that the villagers had spoken of. Evening soon melted into night, and the dim light of her flashlight barely punctured the overwhelming darkness. A twig snapped behind her. Eleanor spun around, her heart racing, only to see the darkness staring back at her. She convinced herself it was just a deer and pressed on, deeper into the depths of Wolfwood. Suddenly, the soft, damp ground beneath her gave way to crunching leaves, and then to a clearing. Moonlight streamed onto a pond, its surface still and mirror-like, and then it struck her. Silhouettes of creatures with glimmering eyes surrounded the water. Wolves. Their eyes weren't merely reflecting light. They gleamed with a luminous, eerie glow, blue and unsettling. Frozen with fear, Eleanor knew running was futile. The wolf pack encircled her, their eyes unblinking, a chilling intelligence behind them. A low growl rumbled through the night, as if they were communicating in a dreadful symphony. "Please," Eleanor gasped, her voice trembling. "I mean no harm." To her astonishment, one wolf stepped forward, its eyes piercing the darkness. In an impossible moment, it spoke, its voice a guttural echo in her mind rather than audible words. "You tread where you should not." Eleanor's mind reeled. I didn't believe. I didn't know," she stammered, feeling the depth of her intrusion. The wolf continued, its stare never wavering. "We guard the gate between realms. Disturb us no longer." As it spoke, the other wolves moved closer, their eyes burning brighter. With a definitive nod, Eleanor understood. "I will leave and never come back. Your secret is safe with me." As if on command, the wolves parted, allowing her a clear path back to the village. Not daring to look back, Eleanor hurried away, the wolves' glowing eyes seared into her memory. She emerged from the forest just as dawn began to break, the early morning light feeling like a rescue. Safe in her home, Eleanor never dared speak of her encounter. Wolfwood remained undisturbed, its whispers carried on the wind, a cautionary tale for the curious. And in the village, the legend of the wolves with glowing eyes grew ever stronger, a spectral warning etched into the night, guarding the mysteries of the dark forest. Title: Echoes in the Basement. In the sparse light of dusk, Emily noticed a series of numbers. An online loader number, scribbled on a forgotten flyer, had been repeatedly dialed into her phone, till her fingers knew them without her mind's consent. Each night, as shadows crawled over the walls of her small brick house, the strange sensation of being watched thickened the air. One particularly cold evening, as winds howled like restless spirits, Emily found her backyard gate creakingly ajar. Heart pounding, she secured it, but as she turned, the scant light showed footprints, leading not away from, but towards, her home. They disappeared ominously at her basement window. "No, it must be some animal," she whispered to herself, trying to tame her fear. Yet, sleep was a stranger that night. Her dreams, when they came in fleeting moments, were smothered by the stark feel of unseen eyes upon her. The following day, grappling with her unease, Emily decided to confront her fear. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and shaky resolve, she ventured into her basement, a place seldom visited, where the air was dense with disuse. She fumbled for the switch, heart racing. Click! The bulb flickered on reluctantly. Every corner was as she remembered, cluttered with memories and cobwebs, except for one. In the far end, behind old, dusty boxes, was a door, slightly ajar, a door she did not remember. Frozen by fear, she edged closer. The musty scent of old earth seeped through the opening. Emily pushed the door, creeping it open, just enough to peek inside. The room beyond, sinister in its quietness, whispered of secrets. Dragging breaths, Emily entered. The floorboards groaned under her steps as she shone her flashlight around. The beam caught something in the corner. Photos, piles of them, all of her in various places. Time she hardly remembered, being alone. Her hands trembled as reality crashed upon her. The footprints, the feelings of being watched, they weren't mere paranoia. A noise snapped her out of her reverie. A shuffle, a slight movement. She swung the flashlight towards it, and there, emerging from the shadows, was a man. His eyes, unsettlingly familiar, mirrored a madness that chilled your blood. "Why?" was all she could muster, voice barely a whisper. "You noticed me once, long ago, but forgot," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I made sure you wouldn't again." Panicking, Emily dashed towards the door, but he was swift, blocking her escape. The flashlight, her only weapon, felt pitifully inadequate. Suddenly, lights flickered above, and voices echoed down the staircase. "Police! We received a call about suspicious activity." The stalker hesitated, his gaze torn between Emily and the approaching footsteps. Seizing the moment, Emily surged past him, up the stairs, into the safety of blinding police lights and open air. As the police subdued her stalker, Emily, shaking and sobbing, began to piece together the horrors. He'd been living there, in that hidden basement room, watching her, planning God knows what, until tonight's disturbance forced his hand. Weeks later, as Emily slowly reclaimed her home and her peace, she never forgot the chilling lesson of the man who made her life a prison of unseen eyes. Always be aware of the shadows in your own home, and most of all, notice those who notice you. Title: The Echoes of Hollow House. In the small, weather-beaten town of Dalridge, there stood a house so cloaked in dread that the townsfolk only spoke of it in whispers, if they dared to speak of it at all. Hollow House, as it came to be known, had been the site of countless inexplicable disappearances over the years. Its once grand facade now choked by overgrown ivy and the relentless march of time. The story begins on a crisp autumn evening with the daring young Emily, whose curiosity about the infamous Hollow House had reached a fevered peak. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and a wildly beating heart, she approached the foreboding gates. "Just a quick look," Emily whispered to herself, pushing open the creaking gate, which protested in the wind. The path to the front door was littered with fallen branches and leaves, a vanishing trail that seemed swallowed by the shadows themselves. As she entered the house, the air turned noticeably colder, her flashlight beam dancing over abandoned furniture, coated in dust and draped in cobwebs. It was then that she heard it, a soft whisper echoing through the halls, as though the house itself was breathing. "Leave." The voice was almost inaudible, carried by a breeze that shouldn't exist in a sealed house. Emily's pulse quickened, but her feet moved deeper into the labyrinth of decayed opulence. "Who's there?" Her voice trembled, betraying her fear. No answer came, just the whisper again, louder this time, urging her to flee. Emily's instincts screamed for her to run, but her legs carried her forward instead, drawn by a force she couldn't understand. She stumbled upon a grand staircase, spiraling upwards into darkness. Each step creaked under her weight, a somber melody of warnings unheeded. At the top of the stairs, the whispers grew to murmurs. Multiple voices, thick with sorrow and anger, filled the air. "This way, follow us." Compelled by the voices, she followed the sound into what appeared to be an old study. The room was dense with the stench of mold and decay. Bookshelves lined the walls, their contents long rotted away. Then the flashlight flickered, once, twice, before dying completely, plunging Emily into darkness. Panic set in as the cold hands of dread gripped her. The murmuring voices turned into agonized shrieks. "Join us." Suddenly, a dim light emerged from a crack in the floorboards, casting eerie shadows across the room. Emily, heart pounding in her chest, moved toward the light. The floor beneath her groaned and gave way, sending her crashing into the darkness below. She awoke to find herself in a narrow dirt passageway, her flashlight miraculously back on. The voices were louder here, and so was the sound of something else. A hollow, rhythmic thumping. Heartbeats, perhaps, but not hers. They surrounded her, beneath her, above her. Hysteria clawed at her senses as she scrambled through the suffocating darkness, the thumping growing ever louder, ever nearer. The passageway seemed to stretch into infinity, a never-ending maze with no escape. Just as her breath became too ragged, her energy too spent, the tunnel opened into the cold night air. Emily burst forth from the ground, gasping, sprawling on the grass, far behind the house. She never looked back, not even once, as she ran all the way home, the echo of heartbeats chasing her all the way. From that night on, Emily knew that some trails, particularly those in Hollow House, were meant to vanish, and some voices were never meant to be followed. Title: The Whispering Ring. In the heart of a dark, sprawling forest where the trees knotted together like twisted fingers and the moonlight barely touched the ground, Ellie found herself lost. Her friend Jake had dared her to retrieve a branch from the infamous hollow tree, a gnarled, ancient relic reputed to be cursed. As the chilly wind sighed through the leaves, her flashlight flickered ominously. Ellie's breath caught in her throat when in the dim light, she spotted something glinting at the base of the hollow tree. It was a ring, intricately carved, with a dark stone that seemed to swallow the weak light. Ignoring the shivers crawling up her spine, she slipped the ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit, a little too perfect, and for a moment Ellie felt a sting, as if the ring had bitten her. As she turned to leave, the forest seemed to close in around her. The path she had followed seemed to disappear, swallowed up by thick underbrush and shadow. She heard whispers, unintelligible at first, growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to emanate from the ring itself. "Ellie," a voice hissed, not quite human, "you belong to the forest now." Panic rising, Ellie tried to pull the ring off, but it clung to her finger stubbornly, as if fused to her skin. Each attempt seemed to make the voices angrier, more agitated. She stumbled through the undergrowth, her flashlight now entirely dead, guided only by the eerie, luminescent glow of the stone in the ring. The whispers morphed into cries of anguish, echoing the torment of souls long trapped within the ring's depths. Ellie, her heart pounding in terror, realized that the ring was cursed not merely with a spell, but with the spirits of those who had previously worn it and been consumed by the forest. Desperate, she made her way to an old utility road, breathless and tired. The moon finally broke through the clouds, giving her a sliver of light, and she could see her own shadow stretch ominously across the ground. But there was something else, another shadow, merging with hers, its features twisted in despair. "I won't let you suffer like I did," the shadow whispered, pitiful yet urgent. It was Jake. Her eyes widened in shock. He had come back for her, not to claim the ring, but to save her from the fate he now endured, trapped within the ring. Ellie, tears blurring her vision, begged, "How can I escape?" "You must give the ring to the tree. It's the heart of the curse," Jake said, his voice fading. With renewed resolve, Ellie rushed back to the hollow tree. Placing her hand against the rough bark, she willed the ring off her finger. Slowly, painfully, the ring slid off, embedding itself into the tree. The whispers halted abruptly, and the forest felt silent, oppressive. Exhausted, she stumbled back to the clearing. The trees seemed to part for her this time, a silent acknowledgement of her bravery, or perhaps a warning. As Ellie exited the woods, the first light of dawn painted the sky with strokes of crimson and gold. She knew she would never forget the horrors of the night, just as she knew somewhere in those dark depths, Jake was now at peace. Each step away from the dark forest was a step back to her normal life, but a part of her remained, forever whispered to by the winds among the twisted trees.